That is a symphony, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, bro. The Honda NSX is one of the cars that inspired all the European supercar models, especially Ferrari, to become more reliable. It inspired Ferrari to come faster. I've got Taylor here today to tell us about his Honda NSX. Let's see why this car is so cool. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of MDTV. Today I've got Taylor. Hey Taylor, how you doing, mate?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thanks for coming on the channel, man. This was about almost 6 months in the making trying to get you on the channel.
Yeah. A lot of delays happened.
Let's get started, man. Can you tell us a little bit about your Honda NSX, how it started and how it all came to you?
Yeah, sure. So the NSX was always my dream car. I had my S2000 at the time and always wanted an NSX, but it had to be manual. When we started looking for an NSX, I was only looking locally in Australia, and the manual prices for NSXs way out of reach. They're crazy. I didn't realize at the time that importing one was quite a bit cheaper, and I didn't want to settle for an auto NSX. I started looking at an R35 instead. We actually bought the R35, my wife and I. We were pretty happy with that, but then I met Mark from Go Garage at a meet. We were just talking and he was telling me that like we can get an NSX that's manual from Japan. First thing I did was hit up my best mate that was asking for the GDR the whole time, and he bought it pretty much right then and there. I went to Go Garage and started looking for my dream car.
That's crazy, man. You sold an R35 GTR. You went from something that's like super technical, you know, heaps of engineering, all-wheel drive, to something like 20 years back, super analog, man.
Yeah, the NSX was always the dream car all along. And the R35 is a lot of fun to drive, but I feel like on the roads, it's not so fun to drive. It's very fast to the point where you do anything and you're going to jail speeds. It's very clunky when you're not speeding in it. It feels very heavy driving in traffic. I definitely prefer the 90s sort of era of cars where everything's more basic, more about handling.
Like you said, this doesn't even have power steering.
No power steering. It's barely got ABS. You know, it's very raw, very driver focused. The steering has an amazing feel to it. In my opinion, the R35 couldn't match.
When you started looking for the car and when you found it, what kind of condition was it in when it came to you?
So when we were looking for the right NSX in Japan, we had a set budget, and Mark kept sending me NSXs as they came into auction. And you know, I wasn't too picky. As long as it was manual, had the pop-ups, I didn't care. But you know, as time went on, we kept losing each auction because a lot of people were bidding, and it just kept going over budget every single time. We even upped the budget halfway through and it still wasn't enough. And then I can't remember exactly where in Japan, but there was a smaller auction outside of Tokyo, and this one popped up. We were looking at it, it looked very rough. It was clear that the car had been sitting for like 10 plus years. The tires were 13 years old. They weren't black anymore, they were brown.
Brown tires?
Yeah, the tires were brown. The whole car was covered in scuffs and sun damage. Cosmetically, it looked very poor condition. That was perfect, to be honest, because we thought we had a chance at it. We bidded on it, and yeah, we won the NSX. It was very exciting at the time. Before we got it to Australia, we took it to Honda in Tokyo, I believe, where Honda runs a heritage program. The original technicians that were trained for the NSX in the 90s performed restorations on these cars, and we took it there. They dropped the engine. They redid every gasket, every seal, water pump, fuel pump, timing belt, you name it. Then they rebuilt the brakes. They changed all the coolant lines from front to back, new brake hoses, any bolts that were kind of rusty, they changed. Obviously, there was really no worry about rust on the body because this car is made out of aluminum, so aluminum doesn't rust, of course, so that was one really good thing. But yeah, so they did that. That took added another 1 month or 2 months to the process of getting it here, but it was definitely worth it because I knew I could just turn the key and drive it as soon as it got to Australia. So we took it there, that was done, and then we started the process of getting it on the boat to Australia. That's
so cool, man. It baffles me that Honda, like the direct manufacturer and brand, they've got technicians working on a car and restoring a car that's like 20 years old, 30 years old this year.
Yeah, 100%. And you'll find that with a lot of Japanese manufacturers is that they still support their heritage cars, which is so amazing. A lot of OEM parts for this are still available. You can still buy them brand new. There's of course some parts that are a little bit hard to get, but pretty much everything that you would need to get the car running and stuff is available.
That's so cool. So by the time it came to you in Australia, mechanically, it was spot on.
It was spot on, yeah. It just like wasn't visually pleasing. Like if you look carefully at it, you could see things were a little bit out of alignment and stuff,
Right.
due to like a car reversing into it in Japan, which was in the auction papers. But yeah, that wasn't probably honestly the worst thing. The paint probably took your eyes off the front. The paint was much worse. But once I got it home, I spent probably about 8 hours just full clay bar, polish, ceramic coat to bring the car up, and yeah, it completely transformed the car. Most of the sun damage came off the paint. The roof was matte black though. I couldn't fix that.
So did you have to get that resprayed for it to be gloss?
Yeah,
Right.
so the roof had to be resprayed. There was no restoring it.
It looks schmick, man. It's so well presented. It definitely doesn't look 30 years old. Can you tell us about the visual mods at the front of the car? Let's start with the hood, because the hood looks so cool, man.
Yeah. So this is a NSX R style hood. It's not a genuine NSX R hood with the scoop, because that only came to the O2s and newer, which had the fixed headlight. So of course that bonnet wouldn't fit the pop-ups, so you can only get like a reproduction of it that fits the pop-ups. So yeah, we've got this. This whole bonnet is actually carbon fiber. We left the inside of the scoop carbon just to leave that carbon accent there, and so people know the bonnet's carbon.
Before you move on though, that hood is actually functional with aerodynamic purposes, hey?
Yes, it is. So mine not exactly at the moment, because you actually need a second piece that goes on the inside, and it connects straight up to the radiator and then directs all the air out this scoop, which is getting rid of hot air away from the radiator. And then it actually moves the air up through the car and then through the wing, which is creating also downforce for the car.
That's so cool, man. I reckon one day I need to get or smoke
Oh,
things
the
so I can
smoke.
show that on camera, because that's so cool, man.
But yeah, I've just got a rain plate over the scoop at the moment, because of course I don't have that
The duct.
to
Yeah.
funnel that air. That's probably really it for the front of the car. Aside from the lip, that was something that the Honda Heritage program did in Japan. They just chucked on a new lip. I guess the old lip.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Those wheels though, can you tell me about those wheels? Because you were saying that these NSX come stock with those kind of wheels.
Yeah, the information's really loose, but the way it kind of goes is in Japan, these were a factory option that you could get when you buy the NSX brand new BBS LMs over the factory wheels. They're such a period correct wheel for this car and just suit it so much. I guess that's why you see so many NSXs with LMs.
They're so beautiful, man, because they're going for such a premium on the second-hand market for cars like R32 GTRs and the RX-7s as well. But it suits this car so well.
This car has, when I bought this car, it came with about 75,000 kilometers on it, which is really low for a 34-year-old car. You could definitely tell that it actually was pretty genuine, because the car had actually just sat in the same spot for probably over 10 years, honestly. Like, it's hard to say. The sun damage was exactly on the same side where the sun would hit the car every time. This seatbelt is actually supposed to be black, but it's actually turned to like a bronzy gold color, which honestly looks kind of cool, to be honest. But
Dude, it's showing, the difference is showing up so well on camera.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. But yeah, you could tell that the seatbelt had actually just sat just like this for probably 10 plus years. You can actually see a seatbelt line on the seat where the seatbelt had actually sat that whole time.
The NSX got its own tan line, man.
Yep, it has its own tan line. Another funny story about these seats is these are Bride artist free seats. They're like the Zeta Frees, but narrower for smaller cars like this. The shoulder part where the seatbelt goes is actually a little wider so that your seatbelt can rest on it. As you can see on the passenger side, the widened shoulder part is actually on the driver's side. So somehow this car has ended up with two driver's side seats. Yeah, just another quirk to this car.
I mean, I'm surprised it didn't come with two steering wheels, hey? Oh, but this car's got so much character, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Back end of the car, what have you done here?
Came with NA2 taillights, so these are from the facelift model. There's the reverse camera, that was something I added in. I did also the NSX-R wing. This is from the facelift as well. It just gives that nice little aggression that the NA1 didn't have. The NA1 wing kind of is as high as where the body goes up to, and it's just flat all the way across.
Oh wow, so that was a pretty conservative wing then.
Yeah, definitely. The exhaust was done in Japan. I think it's an RSR exhaust. I think it's a pretty big brand in Japan. I personally will change it out later because the exhaust is a little quiet for me. I don't want something too loud, but I want something a little louder than this. If you look very closely, it just has this VTEC inside sticker. That came from Japan too.
Let's check out the engine bay, hey?
Yeah, for sure.
And what kind of engine does this have? I can see that it's got 6 cylinders and it's transversely mounted.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. This is a C30A, 6-cylinder VTEC engine. Yeah, it produces 275 horsepower, just like every other Japanese car of the 90s.
Oh, the gentleman's agreement
Yeah. Yep.
And is this over the rear wheels only?
Yep, so it is rear-wheel drive. It's actually funny because this whole idea from Honda actually came from them just having fun with a Honda City in their factory car park. They rear mounted a engine in a Honda City, and they were driving around the car park, and they actually thought it was a lot of fun, so that's what spawned the idea for the NSX.
That's funny, man.
Yeah.
And like just a little experiment in a, Japanese shiplock came up with something so legendary.
Yeah, it was something that redefined the supercar market. Yeah, it has so much good history about, like, of course, every single NSX owner mentions Ayrton Senna, but of course you have to. With such a legendary name behind this project, you have to just mention it.
Clearly, there's been some sort of restoration done to the engine bay because that looks schmick clean and like looks very recent, man.
Thank you very much. Yeah, like I did do some touch-ups to the engine bay. This normally has a cover over it, so you can't see the engine, which, funny enough, in the restoration, Honda put a brand new cover on it and I took it straight off. First thing I did anyway was the air intake. It just had a pod filter sitting right here. I'm not a big fan of that. Like, it's just a hot air intake at that point. It's worse than the factory air box. So I bought a RFY air intake and had to do a little modification because it didn't come with the pod filter that's meant for this. So I just fitted a K&N inside there. Then after that, we just got these super cheap auto special vacuum lines. Then when I actually made up this paint myself, it's the same paint code as the Monaco Pearl Blue NSX. My wife actually hand painted these letters the same silver as the car. So
really?
Yeah, the silver is actually color matched to the car.
Wow, that's cool.
I put this cover on over the coolant tank. So this coolant tank's just plastic underneath. If you're going to do a coverless engine bay, this is a must because the sun goes on it and then the sun will eventually crack the plastic.
Yeah,
so you have to put this cover on, which is also from an NSXR. So yeah, that's pretty much most of the engine bay mods here.
So that air box, where's the air coming from? Is it coming from the side vent?
Yeah,
and up that? Oh,
so
wow.
the air actually comes in through these side vents, which are on both sides. And then there's ducts that go straight up to where the pod filter is for this, so it just brings air straight from out there into the engine.
Right, cool.
One thing that people actually don't know is even though the engine is in the back here, the car actually still has a practical boot as well.
And does it get hot in the boot? Like, does your raw chicken end up coming out roasted?
Yeah. So do not put your milk in there. Don't put anything in there that you don't want to heat up. It's not awful. Like, it's not like a Lotus.
The inside of the car, it looks immaculate. I love the design. I love the styling.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've said it before and I'll say it again, this car's just timeless, and that's including the interior. It's so well designed. It's like a cockpit design. I think this was actually one of the first ever cars that was actually designed after a jet sort of cockpit.
So what kind of mods have you done to the inside of the car?
Probably the most noticeable thing, which is the NSXR steering wheel, the NSXR horn button. It is on a work bell quick release as well. I've also got the NSXR titanium shift knob, NSXR shift boot, which funny thing about this shift boot is Honda went with this mesh design rather than leather because the NSXR was all about saving weight. I think this mesh saved like a gram of weight compared to the leather, so they switched to this material. I also got the shortened NSXR shifter stalk. So the shifts are a bit shortened. Feels very nice. This is the most recent interior mod I've done, which is the NSX navigation pod. The pod itself was a factory option in Japan, came with a navigation screen. But what I've done is I've just got a head unit with wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, just kind of retrofitted it into this pod. It's not a straight fit. I actually had to take apart the casing of the head unit and glue the motherboard of the head unit onto the back of the screen to to make this fit in here because there's no space behind it at all. It still works. We'll see how long it still works for, but it's good. That's what the reverse camera is also hooked up to. The only other mods in this interior I can think of right now is just the seats, which I didn't do.
It's such a nice interior and it feels like it just rolled off the factory. You've done such a good job in restoring it. It's really clean and it doesn't look like it's sat out in the sun. I'm almost laying down flat in the chair. Or in the bed. That's so cool. And like the way you're sitting, it looks almost like an F1 kind of position. Your bum is really low and your knees are really high up.
It's funny you say that too, because like Honda was really big in F1 they were in their glory years when they made this car, and they actually brought across a lot of their F1 technology to the NSX.
Oh, I can feel the vibrations coming through the chassis. It's so raw.
You could like.
Oh man, you could hear the V6 purr.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, when I actually first got this car, I was more scared about when I first drove this car than when I first got the R35 and drove that.
Really?
I was more scared of driving.
Is it because it feels so much more raw?
Yeah, more raw, like
the
and like
input
the steering
is crazy.
and stuff. Like it all felt so raw, where the R35 kind of feels like a normal car when you're driving normally. It's so stiff. The steering is so direct, like I can feel everything that's on the road through my steering wheel, which is something I really love.
Obviously, the gearbox is pretty good because it's made by Honda, hey?
Oh, it is an amazing feeling gearbox.
Dude, that's not even going fast.
Yeah.
It's such, oh wow. That sounds amazing.
I know, it has a beautiful sound, this car does.
What's the red line for this? Just under 8,000?
Just about 8.
Dude, that sounds amazing.
It's incredible.
And that is like what you would call quiet exhaust, hey?
Yeah, it's a pretty quiet exhaust.
Yeah, and that was mostly engine sound rather than exhaust, wasn't it?
It's all pretty much engine sounds.
Oh wow, and it sounds well balanced. We've got some mountainous bits here, some twisty bends.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, this feels so good. Normally I'm in turbo cars, and I've had turbo cars on the channel.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to be in like a naturally aspirated engine that just pulls and it's nice and linear. Dude, that sound is crazy.
Like you think, oh, NA V6, it's 34 years old, like it's gonna not feel very nice, but it actually feels fairly quick for what it is.
That purr, I can't get over that. Oh man, the engine note harmonically sounds so smooth, and you don't feel many vibrations at all when you're at speed.
Super.
Whoa!
Super easy to rev match in this car.
Oh, and I love that it's the power's just there.
The car just wants to pull.
Like, it's not even that fast, but the sound gets you. It just tickles your earballs.
Yeah. Honda is really underrated,
because it's got VTEC, the turbo lag without the turbo.
I think a lot of people who trash Hondas have probably never really been in one. They've just seen the riced out ones that come with P plates on them and come to car meets and stuff.
And that was a thing in the 90s and the early 2000s. But now that those people have kind of moved on, everyone that owns a
they're
Honda,
all too expensive now too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the P plates can't really get a hold of them anymore.
No way.
Yeah, this was actually the first Honda with VTEC.
Really?
Honda launched VTEC on this car.
The suspension that you've got in it is so stiff. You can kind of feel it going through the chassis, hey?
Yeah, like you can feel every tiny little, like this road's smooth and you can still feel the little bumps on this road.
I don't know how else to describe it, and it's probably not showing on camera, but it's raw. It feels like you're in a tin can, right?
Well, tin cans are made out of aluminum as well.
Yep, that's it, yeah. But does this have like the LSDs in it and all that stuff as well?
Yeah.
But with the V6s, man, when you're on it, it just keeps going, man.
Yeah. Especially with VTEC too, and it's very rare to have a Honda with a VTEC V6. Like they don't make normally if they do a V6, it has no VTEC.
Dude, that is a symphony, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, bro. get over that linear power curve
Yeah,
of a V6.
well, I don't know if you saw what we got to just then.
We got it to 80 Ks, right? 80 Ks.
Yeah, it was 80 Ks. Yeah, like really, really quick 80 Ks.
Yeah. Dude. Oh, this feels amazing through the turns.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks so much for coming out on the channel, man.
Oh,
Really
thank
appreciate
you so much
it.
for having me.
Nah, no worries. Follow Taylor on his Instagram, guys, and your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah,
I'll put
thank
the
you.
handle down in my description.
Thank you so
box.
much.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next episode.
Thanks. Bye.